Welcome, everyone. Before we start, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Drop a comment below. Also, tell me what kind of stories you'd love to hear. Stay tuned till the end. Story 1. We met online. I had been looking for a new gaming group after my usual one stopped meeting due to the pandemic. That was when I joined a Dungeons and Dragons group she was part of. At first, she seemed friendly enough, but there was one odd request. Before joining, she insisted I write a short story about my character interacting with hers. It was unusual, but I shrugged it off, assuming it was just part of the group's heavily text-based role-play style. At first, everything seemed fine, but then she started sending me private messages, ones that quickly became uncomfortable. What began as casual, in-game banter turned into something else, suggestive, cringe-worthy messages. She made it clear she wanted something beyond the game. I refused, making my boundaries clear, but she ignored them. What made it worse was that her boyfriend was also in the group. Despite that, she continued pushing, sending explicit messages, crossing lines I had never invited her to. Then, one night, she went too far. Unprovoked, she sent me graphic photos and an explicit video, screaming things that I will never be able to forget. I had never shared my real name, my face, or any personal information with her, yet somehow she acted as if we were in some twisted relationship that had only existed in her mind. That was the final straw. I left the group immediately, cutting off all contact with her. The other members were understanding, but she was furious. Months passed. I had almost forgotten about her when a message appeared on my phone. It was a selfie, her selfie. She simply said, "Hello." Panic set in immediately. We had only ever communicated through Roll20 and Discord. I had never given her my number, yet somehow she had found it. I blocked her immediately, but she just used another number. Then another. Then another. When she ran out of phone numbers, she spammed me on Facebook and Twitter. I was exhausted. No matter what I did, she found a way back. Eventually, I gave in and responded. Maybe if I talked to her, I could get her to stop. I knew it was a mistake, but I just wanted my life back. She told me her boyfriend had left her, that she had fallen into a deep depression, and that it was my fault. She demanded that I take responsibility. I refused, telling her plainly that her actions had nothing to do with me, that I wanted nothing to do with her, and that she needed to stop. Then she sent another message, a picture. It was my house. The next message was even worse, a screenshot of a plane ticket to the nearest airport. "I am on my way," she wrote. I blocked her again and immediately called the police. They dismissed it, saying there was nothing they could do unless she actually showed up. For days I waited, my heart racing every time a car slowed down outside my house. But she never came. After that, she vanished. No more messages, no more new accounts, no more threats. To this day, I do not know if she really got on that plane or if it was just another way to torment me. That was over a year ago. I still check my messages with hesitation, afraid that one day she will start again. Afraid that this time she will not just be a digital presence. She will be standing at my door. Story 2. I have had 2 really strange experiences with online stalkers. The first one began with a gaming group I used to play with about 10 years ago. We were a close-knit group, mostly in our early 20s, spending nights playing Counter-Strike, Quake, Doom, and Team Fortress 2 together. One of the guys in the group started acting differently toward me. At first, it seemed harmless, just friendly teasing, but then he became persistent, constantly flirting with me. I brushed it off, assuming it was just dudes being dudes, but he refused to stop. I made it clear I was not interested, but that only seemed to fuel his obsession. I spoke to the others on Ventrilo, explaining the situation. Strangely, none of them had experienced the same behavior from him. When I shared screenshots of the messages he had been sending me, they agreed it was unsettling. They decided to kick him from the group and block him. I gave him one last warning. Stop, or I would block him too. He snapped. He exploded in a fit of rage, screaming insults at me. I blocked him and thought that was the end of it. A week passed, and everything returned to normal. Then, one night, a new player joined our Team Fortress 2 matches. She had been invited by another friend, and at first she seemed friendly. But as the game progressed, something felt off. She started using custom sprays, the exact same ones the blocked guy had created. My stomach dropped. I tried to ignore it, unsure how to bring it up without sounding paranoid. But the more we played, the worse it got. I finally asked, "Hey, why are you using his custom sprays?" Her response? A tangled web of lies. "I'm his sister," she claimed. "Something happened to him." But she kept using those sprays. Then, new ones appeared, containing personal information about me. One of my friends called her out. That was when the act dropped. The female voice disappeared, replaced with his real voice. It was him the whole time. He had created an entirely new identity just to get close to me again. We blocked and reported him immediately. The group moved on, but I never fully relaxed. And then he found me again. To this day, I am not sure how. Maybe he got my number from someone else, or maybe he found another way to track me down. This time, it was personal. He started texting me, sending photos, things I never wanted to see. I blocked him, changed all my passwords, and cut myself off from anything he could trace. Finally, he disappeared. I never expected to have a stalker from a gaming group. I never encouraged his behavior, and I certainly never saw myself as a target. But that was not the last time it happened. There was someone else, an older woman I had met playing World of Warcraft. Her obsession ran deep, so deep that I had to block her and an entire group of people just to escape. In the end, I had to quit the game entirely. That was the only way to truly disappear. Story 3. I never realized someone had been watching me for 2 years until the day we met. It happened in the student counselor's office. I was there to discuss my future plans when a guy walked in, hesitated, then quickly apologized and left. The counselor turned to me and asked, "Do you know him? He seemed really happy to see you." I shook my head. I had never seen him before. When my meeting ended, he was waiting outside the office door. He introduced himself, insisted on walking me back to class. He seemed friendly, interested in the same things I was. I figured, why not make a new friend? I had no idea what I had just let into my life. Over the next 2 weeks, everything changed. He became possessive, angry when I spent time with my friends. It started with subtle complaints, then escalated. He asked me out. I said no. He begged. I still said no. Then came the threats. He started trying to intimidate me, blocking my path in the halls, cornering me when no one was around. But I had always been scrappy, and he was barely taller than me. I was not scared until he started threatening my friends instead. Then, one day in class, I felt something, a presence. I turned toward the window. He was there, standing outside, staring in. By then, I was unraveling. He had dug up old traumas, using them against me. I was exhausted, mentally, emotionally. A guy in my class, someone I had never been close with, noticed. "Is it about him?" he asked. "The guy outside?" I nodded, barely able to get the words out. He did not need any more explanation. When the bell rang, the entire class stayed seated. The teacher left. Every guy in that room stood up. Together, they walked out through the fire escape and surrounded him. He never came back. A week later, I learned he had been transferred to another school, one for students with severe behavioral issues. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Years later, I heard about him again. He had found another girl. She didn't make it out. I had dodged a bullet, but I still think about the girl who didn't. Story 4. I met him at my part-time job when I was in high school. At first, we did not get along. He was careless, always late, and barely did his job. As part of the management team, I had to deal with his mess-ups constantly. Over time, though, we hashed things out, and he became a familiar face. Eventually, he started selling weed, and I, going through a rough breakup, let my guard down and agreed to hang out with him. It was a mistake I would regret for the rest of my life. That night, he laced my weed. I do not remember much after that, just flashes of his face, his weight pressing down on me, and the overwhelming feeling that something was very, very wrong. The next morning, I woke up in my car with no recollection of how I got there. He was gone, and for months I did not see or hear from him. I buried it, told no one. My friends knew I had hung out with him, but I never spoke of what happened. Then, out of nowhere, he came back, angrier and more dangerous than before. An old friend, someone I had a falling out with, sought him out and befriended him. She told him things about me, things I still do not fully understand. All I know is that he became obsessed. He started showing up at my job, his face twisted with rage. In front of customers and coworkers, he would stand inches from me, screaming accusations I could barely comprehend. I told him to leave me alone. He would not listen. Security did nothing. Management did nothing. Only one supervisor seemed to care. She threatened to call the police, and that made him back off for a little while. But then he started coming back. The worst part was that he knew where I lived. Every night I braced myself for the sound of footsteps outside my window, for a knock on my door, for the feeling of being trapped again. My fear turned to anger. I stopped cowering. I started screaming back, threatening him, daring him to try something. I did not want to be afraid anymore. And then, suddenly, he was gone. I found out through whispers and rumors that he had died, face down in the dirt at some drug-fueled party. No one looked into it. No one cared. Just another dealer who went too far. Another overdose. Another name people barely remembered. But I remembered. I still do. I live my life knowing that people like him exist, and I have sworn to never feel that helpless again. I have trained in self-defense, learned how to fight, and I carry a knife now. I do not know if that makes me safer, but it makes me feel stronger. He is gone, but the fear he left behind, that is something I will carry with me forever. Story 5. It started with anonymous calls. At first, I barely noticed them, just a few missed private numbers here and there. I assumed it was spam, or maybe an ex trying to be petty. I had no reason to be concerned until they did not stop. Over time, the calls became more frequent. 20 missed calls, 30, all from private numbers, always in the middle of the night. It became part of my routine, checking my phone only to see a long list of missed calls. It was annoying, but I brushed it off until yesterday. A number finally appeared on my screen. No more private caller. This time, they wanted me to see. 3 calls in a row, seconds apart. I had enough. I reported it to the police, expecting nothing to come of it. Maybe they would tell me to change my number or ignore it. But 2 hours later, my phone rang again. "This is Officer Daniels," the voice on the other end said. "I traced the number you provided. We need to talk." My stomach sank. The officer came to meet me in person, his expression serious. "The man behind those calls has admitted to being unhealthily obsessed with you for years." My head spun. I needed to know. "Who is it?" I asked. And then he said the name, a name I knew well, someone I had known for 6 years, someone I had laughed with, hung out with, bought things from, a guy I thought was a friend. I refused to believe it at first. He had never given me a reason to suspect him, never acted strangely around me. But the officer insisted. He had confessed. I needed to hear it for myself. So I messaged him. "Is everything okay?" I asked, still hoping for some logical explanation, hoping it was all a mistake. His response shattered that hope. He admitted everything, said he felt like a creep, that he had never meant to scare me, that he had been watching me for nearly 4 years. He had pictures of me, things I had posted online, photos he had taken of me himself. He even had images from my friends' pages, ones I had never even seen before, but he swore he would delete them if I asked. I told him to delete everything. I told him to stay away, and he agreed. He said he was seeking help, that he knew he had crossed a line, but I still blocked his number, reported everything to the police, and made sure he could never contact me again. I cannot believe I was this blind. How do you move on, knowing someone had been watching your every move without you realizing it? How do you trust your own instincts after that? Today my world feels different, smaller, unfamiliar, and no matter how much time passes, I know I will never look at my own reflection the same way again. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales that explore the mysterious intersections between our world and the unknown. Have you ever experienced an encounter that made you question the fabric of reality? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.